So if you have ever lived in, currently live in, or have ever even driven through the great state of Texas, you know there are some things down here in this vast stretch of southern land that people just can't seem to get enough of. No, I'm not just talking about amazing smoked brisket bought from a roadside stand. I'm primarily talking about pickup trucks. More specifically, full-size pickup trucks. Texans just can't seem to get enough of these things. And the state even has some history with building some of the best known full-size trucks on the market. However, there's one full-size truck hailing from the Riverwalk town of San Antonio that doesn't always seem to be at the top of everyone's full-size truck buying list. Well, hopefully in this video, that might change your opinion a little bit. Or it might not, because today on the driveway, we're going to be taking a look at and going for a spin in the 2021 Toyota Tundra. All right, boys and girls, it is Tundra time. Welcome to the 2021 Toyota Tundra TRD Pro 4x4 Crew Max. Now, the last little bit of that, we can kind of look past it because 4x4 and Crew Max, well, you can put that on a lot of different Tundra trims these days. However, the TRD Pro is a different story because it's one of just 3 vehicles in the modern Toyota family to ever wear the most off-road focused, most aggressively based namesake that the company has ever created. Now, the only other 2 vehicles to wear that these days are the 4Runner TRD Pro, which we looked at a couple years ago, link in the description below if you want to check that out, and the Tacoma TRD Pro, which I'm still waiting to get my hands on. So think of this as like the daddy of the TRD Pro family, but it is one of the more old school vehicles in Toyota's current fleet. However, one thing that doesn't necessarily reflect that is the price tag. Let's face it, big half-ton trucks like this are not cheap, and the Tundra TRD Pro is not the most expensive truck on the market, nor is it the most expensive Tundra that you can buy, but still, that price is pretty up there. For the 4x4 Crew Max TRD Pro like I have here, base MSRP is $53,050. Factor in a couple of little extra charges we have here. We have a $70 door sill protection kit, a $139 bed mat in the 5.5-foot bed we have on this one. We have $75 for a spare tire lock, and a little bit of extra performance for $85 in the form of a TRD performance air filter. Add all that up plus a $1,595 delivery processing and handling fee, and on this particular example here, it comes to $55,014, which is a little bit more on the cheap side actually, and this is kind of what's more attracting me to a truck like this if I was actually in the market. A lot of other trucks that are stuffed to the hilt with tech, they have, you know, 1,000,000-inch screens, 20-inch chrome wheels, you know, the works, right? But those are 60, 70, even knocking on the door of $80,000 for one of those. So can a sub $60,000 off-road ready truck possibly keep up with those like from the big 3? Well, let's start her up, take her on the road, let's find out. Okay, so now after living with the Tundra for about a week at this point, there are some things about this truck that are a little more glaringly obvious to me. Number one, I'll go ahead and say it with a little bit of a half-hearted confidence here, she is due for a bit of a refresh. This truck, in and of itself, just this platform, has been around for almost 15 years, which is more than enough time for a company to give it a little bit more of an update. And yes, I know they did do that about 7-8 years ago, but still, you know, she could use a nip and a tuck here and there. But when I think of a half-ton truck like this, I have a little bit more of a simplistic outlook on things. I like things that are built tough, which this truck's built in Texas, so check that box. I like something that's built to work, which this truck is plenty capable of doing that, both towing and payload. And I like something that is built to last, and it's a Toyota. What more do I need to say about that? So on the subject of it being built to last and being a Toyota truck, let's talk about what actually drives this big old machine. At the front, we have a 5.7 liter V8, dubbed the iForce series of engines, with variable valve timing with intelligence, and it's connected to a 6-speed electronically controlled transmission and a part-time 4W demand 4-wheel drive system. The engine itself makes 381 horsepower, 401 pound-feet of torque, and is good for a woeful rating of 13 miles per gallon city and 17 miles per gallon highway, which, by the way, I've not even been able to achieve during this entire week of testing. I've only returned around 11.9 to about 12.1 combined miles per gallon during the week that I've had this truck. On the subject of that powertrain, however, I do have to give one praise to Toyota, which is the TRD dual exhaust that they've put on this truck. This thing sounds like a muscle car. It's deep, it's rich, it's throaty. I mean, just take a listen to this. Oh, yes! So now with the powertrain stuff out of the way, let's talk about something that is usually not a big strong suit when it comes to trucks, whether it's a half-ton, a 3/4 ton, or a 1-ton truck, or something even bigger than that, and that is road manners and handling. Road manners in this truck, the TRD-tuned FOX racing suspension, it's taut, it's compliant. I don't really feel a whole lot of bumps or anything coming through the seat here, so I would say I'd actually give it a thumbs up. The handling, however, well, it's not one finger on the steering wheel. It is weighted. You do actually feel a good bit of heft in the steering as well. So I actually do have to give Toyota praise for that, because a lot of trucks are just too easy to drive these days. You want something that you can really manhandle from time to time. And this Tundra definitely seems to be checking that box for me too. So now let's break down the real meat and potatoes here. Is this truck genuinely worth the $55,000 price tag that most people will come to expect when they come to buy a half-ton pickup truck? Well, like I said before, as somebody who has a more simplistic approach to life, I don't really need all the most modern of everything. So therefore, I would wholeheartedly pay the sticker, if not with manufacturer discounts, of course, for a truck like this, because it does everything I've asked of it, and then a little bit more. It's a lot more comfortable than I was expecting. It's got a beautiful engine soundtrack, and yeah, the fuel mileage is not that great, but that's something you get with a big truck like this. It's not a hybrid. So with that in mind, does it tickle all of my senses? Well, there's one other area that really does when it comes to that category, and that's in the looks department. So let's find another little stretch of road here. Let's pull over and let's talk about that, shall we? Now, let's be honest with ourselves. If there's one area that the Tundra has caught the most flack for over its several years of existence with this particular body style, it has been its exterior design. But one thing that appeals to this particular person here is the fact that it doesn't look all sleeked down like a lot of other trucks out there. It's big, it's bold, it's brash, it's in your face, and to me, the Tundra definitely has a lot more presence than something more, shall we say, American built, even though, as I said before, this is built in Texas. Now, one of the things that appeals to me about the TRD Pro is just how much they've outfitted the exterior to make it more of a unique looking truck, starting with its exterior color. This is a brand new color for 21. It is known as Lunar Rock, one of 4 distinct colors that you can get the TRD Pro in overall. The other 3 being super white, midnight black metallic, and the magnetic gray metallic. That is your color choice palette for the 21 TRD Pro. But just looking here at the front, I mean, it benefits from a lot, but I love things like the blacked out LED headlights here. They're not full LEDs because your turn signals are still an incandescent bulb, but you do have the LED daytime running lights, automatic high beam assist, as well as LED high and low beams as well. Not to mention down here, the TRD Pro actually benefits from a standard set of Rigid Industries LED fog lights. This ain't no halogen BS here. They got some proper built LED fog lights down there. Not to mention, one of my other favorites is the grille. You have the Toyota name spelled out in like a shadow gray set against a gloss black backdrop, and I just love that. Not to mention things like, even though we have a fake hood scoop up here that doesn't really go anywhere, because I've actually looked under the hood and there are a couple of little holes under there for some things, but I don't think this hood scoop goes anywhere. And then also you've got this big wide little mouth up here at the top. I mean, the grille itself is huge and it feeds a lot of air into that massive V8 up front, but they've gave it a little extra cooling power with this little slit up here at the top. And finally, the Tundra is starting to move up in the modern age. If you can see that little clear square here under the Toyota name, that is part of kind of a dumbed down version of the Toyota Safety Sense system. No, we don't have things like blind spot monitoring, but at the same time, just to name a couple, this particular truck does come with the dynamic all-speed radar cruise control and forward collision warning. Now, of course, you can't talk about this truck's beefy off-road looks without talking about its special wheel and tire combo. Now, the tires aren't so special, but what they're wrapped around definitely is. Specific just to the TRD Pro, we have a set of matte black finished 18-inch BBS forged alloy wheels. I love the red center cap here in the middle, kind of adds a little something extra to catch the eye. And as I said, the tires may not be special, but they are meaty. 275/65 series, 18-inch Michelin all-terrain tires. Now, they don't have as aggressive of a tread as something you might find like the Nitto grapplers on the 2019 4Runner TRD Pro that I reviewed a couple years ago, but still, nonetheless, these tires definitely look beefy. Now, I was talking about it on the test drive, but just really quickly wanted to look up here in the wheel well, and you can see some of the remnants of that TRD-tuned FOX racing suspension. Now, if you haven't already guessed at this point, this truck is enormous, and that is definitely one thing that counts in the world of half-ton trucks like this. Now, speaking of size, I didn't mention it at the front, but this truck is 79.9 inches wide, which is very specific for a reason, because here in the US, any truck over 80 inches wide requires little yellow marker lights like under the headlight, across the grille, and up across the roof. Now, you might find something like that on a pre-runner truck like a Ford Raptor, or maybe even the Ram TRX, or something bigger like a Sierra or Silverado heavy duty. But they made the TRD Pro, or the Tundra in general, around that size to keep from falling into that category. Now, lengthwise, it all depends on a few factors. This truck has a 5.5 foot bed on it here. You can get a 6.5 foot bed, or just over 6.5 feet if you so desire. But with the 5.5 foot bed Crew Max configuration that we have here, you're looking at just under 229 inches from nose to tail. And not to mention, I talked about that suspension earlier, you've got 10.6 inches of ground clearance from the rocker panels down. So not only does this truck sit way up in the air, but it is wide and it is long. So if you want to talk about a truck that's a size queen, well, you're kind of looking at it. Now, what's not so big about this truck is the features list down the side, and even including the small little power tilting and sliding sunroof up on top. You have manually folding body colored side view mirrors. Again, no blind spot monitoring on this. You've got the black plastic on there to keep with that sort of rugged theme. They've blacked out the badges here, the Tundra badge along the lower part of the door, and your iForce V8 badge as well. Not to mention, they've kind of simplified things like the door handles here. These look like they're off of a Tundra SR or maybe an SR5, but one thing those trucks don't have is a standard Toyota Smart Access system. Using an older Toyota key here, lock, unlock, you've got the panic button and the releasable key blade with an actual keyhole in the door as well. A lot of other vehicles, you have to pop off a piece of trim, stick the little key fob in the door, and that's that. But the truck is locked right now, so if you want to lock it, all you have to do is just tap the little ridge at the front. One beep indicates that it is locked, and all you have to do is keep the key on your person, you touch the back of the handle, and she's open for you. Now, here at the back of the Tundra, aside from the fact that the design looks just as familiar as it does up in the front, there are a lot of things that I really enjoy, at least about this area of the TRD Pro. First of all, you look at this back glass here. You notice there's no little dividing sort of window in the middle that might slide back and forth, surrounded by two stationary pieces of glass, like a lot of typical pickup trucks you might have seen before. There is a switch just to the left of the steering column up front that lowers this entire rear sheet of glass right here. So if you have something long, let's say, you know, like a big piece of wood or whatever, and it just won't fit up to the back window, you can roll that down and actually have it go into the cab, thus giving you a little bit more space. Now, let's be fair here. This truck is not meant just for show. It is meant to work. So let's talk about some payload and towing numbers. Like I said, we have a 5.5 foot bed on this one. Inside here, payload capacity of 1,560 pounds. And thanks to the four-wheel drive system that I have, not to mention the towing package with this giant tow hitch here on the back, you're looking at 9,200 pounds, which is not even close to being a class leader. But nonetheless, I really do love the fact that an old school V8 truck like this still has the muscle to keep up with the best of them. But now let's talk about the tailgate itself. And there's really not much. As I said, you've got a four-wheel drive badge back here, the Tundra name stamped into the back. You also, of course, have the government mandated backup camera just to the left of the latch that drops the rather damped tailgate. Now, I can't just let it fall all the way. Some trucks, I will admit, the tailgates do seem a little bit more damped than the one in this one, but still, nevertheless, at least it doesn't fall and feel like it's going to break your kneecaps on the way down. Now, here on the tailgate, you can also notice, first of all, there's some scratches, so you can tell this truck has been used a little bit, but we do have what look like places to set your beer or set your can of soda, whatever you might be drinking, while you're hanging out tailgating with all your friends. Now, if you're one who's looking for the most luxurious full-size pickup truck out there on the market, the TRD Pro may disappoint quite a few of you, especially, again, for its over $55,000 price tag. But then again, being a little bit more simplistic is not such a bad thing for some. First of all, here on the door, you do have some black leather padding up here on the upper part of the door, in contrast to the sort of rubberized grip that you have for the door grab handle right here. Again, the red stitching and black leather coinciding with these beautiful natural grained black leather bucket seats, standard here on the TRD Pro. Again, also you have the red stitching like you saw on the door with the TRD Pro embroidery in the middle of the front seats. And of course, here back on the door, you do have all your typical power conveniences. Both the front windows are fully automatic in both directions. The rear windows are not. You do have the power door locks with the keyless access, as I said before, and also the window locks to go along with it. As far as the rest of the interior, a lot of the stuff, just like the outside, is very familiar. The steering wheel is a big leather-wrapped, nice and chunky 4-spoke unit with all the buttons you could think of. We'll talk about those here in just a bit. But down here, just to the left of the column, you do actually have quite a selection of buttons here, some of which are pretty easy. You have the mirror controls, you have the interior lighting, as well as whether you want it on or off when the door is open, certain instrumentation lighting. This is that switch that allows that rear piece of glass to be rolled down. You push it more down like an actual button, and that rolls down the window. You pull it towards you, that's what rolls it up. You also have the automatic high beam assist, as well as the exterior lighting controls. Remember that third brake light right above the rear window? Well, this allows you to either turn it off completely, have it on when the doors are unlocked or open, or you can just leave it on all the time. Now, from a driver's perspective, the Tundra feels absolutely enormous, even from someone here sitting at over 6 feet tall. I have a commanding view of the road out the front windshield. In fact, great visibility from all corners, to be fair. Even with that hood scoop in the way, I have no problem seeing a good distance out of the front windshield. Also, talking about massive, I have to talk about the seats again. Again, full leather-bound, black leather with the red stitching and the TRD Pro up here in the upper part of it. These seats are super, super cushiony. They actually have more bolstering on the inner part of the seat than they do on the out, or maybe that's just because this is a press truck and people have been getting in and out of it a lot more often. But either way, I feel like I'm sitting in an armchair with these. All I need is just a fold-down armrest, and I'd be perfectly right at home like I would in my own living room. And then, of course, I talked about all those buttons here on this chunky 4-spoke steering wheel. So let's go over those. So we have some arrow buttons over here that controls part of your thin film transistor display up there in your gauge cluster. You also have the back button that goes back as well. You have a couple of different new ones here. The first of which is the distance sensor for the dynamic radar cruise control and the button for the lane departure warning. Again, those are the only three systems you're going to get from the Toyota Safety Sense here. So the radar cruise, the lane departure, and the forward collision warning. You can see my hand is naturally resting on the cruise control stalk down here, kind of a nod to the old school. Even my 2010 RAV4 actually has that little stalk down there. You have the Bluetooth call functions and Bluetooth voice recognition, radio modes, and of course seek, track, and volume buttons alike. And of course, last but not least, what adjustments does the steering wheel have? Well, it's tilting and telescoping like usual, and the lever for which is located right down to the left under the steering column. So now let's talk center console, and believe it or not, out of everything that this truck has to offer, from its exterior design to the slightly more simplistic layout of the interior, I honestly feel that this system right here dates this truck the most, because let's be honest, a lot of other Toyota vehicles are going 10-inch screens, maybe a little bit bigger, so an 8-inch screen in a big $50,000+ truck like this does seem to date it just a hair. Now, before we start bashing on all of this and going into all the details, let's take a journey over to the left of that just a little bit. We do have a tow haul mode as well, with your trailer brake control down below, and of course the all-important push button start. But now back to the screen. So like I said, this is an 8-inch screen here with Toyota's dynamic navigation system. The map itself, quite honestly, is pointless, because now this system is Android Auto and Apple CarPlay compatible. So all you have to do is go into the menu function over here on the left. You can see in the screen we have a couple of different tabs. So destination, audio, Bluetooth phone, you have an Intune app suite in here, but then you see the button labeled projection. That is your Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You also have general system information and general system setup, but we can go back to the home screen. This is going to include things like speed dial contacts for the Bluetooth connectivity, your audio system, which we'll get to here in a minute, and of course a split screen containing the navigation. Now, I keep hinting to it, but I finally have to say it. I love the audio system in this. You guys know me, I'm a complete audiophile. This thing has a 12-speaker JBL audio system with an onboard subwoofer and amplifier. And while it's not the most bass-filled system out there, it's crisp, it's clean, and, well, let me just turn it on and I'll show you. So as an audiophile myself, I need something to kind of cool myself down when I'm done thrashing my head around to some good tunes. And of course that brings me to the Tundra's dual zone climate control setup. And what a more simplistic you could have. I mean, you have your heated seat setting over here on the outside of the display, temperatures in the middle, fan speed, and climate setting as well, along with very clearly labeled buttons, your front and rear defrost, fan speed, your air conditioning recycling, and your air conditioning mode. So that toggles the climate zones as well. Your heated seat controls, those are located on either side in between two giant chunky knobs here with the automatic AC and off buttons on the left, and you also have the temperature sync and the air conditioning button itself hidden inside each of the knobs. When you move into the lower part of the center console, you kind of have to reach under to access things like the USB ports to access your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as the two 2.1 amp USB chargers here in the front. I also have a 120 watt outlet over here on the left as well, and the button way underneath to turn off your traction control, which is why it's hidden, because I don't know why you'd want to press that button in the first place. As you move back from that, you have a giant storage space up here. No wireless charging, not even up here in the armrest where I have my phone resting right now, so you don't get that even for over 50 grand. But you do have a nice size cup holder here, along with two additional ones here in the back. Perfectly comfortable for storing your large McDonald's Coke or perhaps whatever you're drinking, just not a large Gatorade bottle. If you're going to do that, you might want to close it tight, flip it upside down, and then you're going to be able to fit it in the cup holders here. As you go next to the cup holders, you get to this chunky bright silver and slight leather wrap shifter knob here with the TRD logo embossed across the top. Now, as I mentioned in the drive, this thing has a 6-speed electronically controlled automatic transmission, and quite frankly, I don't mind the fact it doesn't have 8 or 10 gears for better fuel economy. This is a truck. I mean, it's meant to have some torque, some power, and the 6-speed automatic definitely allows you to make the best use out of that 5.7 V8 up front. It's got all the functions you want. It is the typical kind of cross-gated shifter that you would think of. First of all, it does have a backup camera, so when I put it in reverse, you can see the backup camera comes up here on the screen. It is non-adjustable, so you do have the guidance lines as well as the sort of wide fisheye lens. As you heard when I put it in any gear other than park, it does have the automatic door locks as well. You can put it in drive, flip it over into the S mode, which drops it down a couple gears. It drops it into 4th, but then you just pull back to go down a gear and you push up to go up a gear. Coming back from the center console, of course, we have this giant cavernous storage space here underneath. You guys saw just this little opening here with the TRD Pro badge up at the top of the lid here is big enough for my Samsung Galaxy S9 smartphone and its OtterBox to fit perfectly. So I'm just shocked that Toyota didn't put a wireless charging system down below. But you open it up and it is huge. As you can see, all I've got down in here is the Moroni sticker for this truck, and we've got one additional 12-volt 120-watt outlet down here in the base of it as well. Now, if you want to talk about something that puts the max in the Crew Max spec on this TRD Pro, then take a look at the rear seats. First of all, just look at how wide those doors open. This thing has some serious space here in the back. Now, first of all, the seats are still trimmed in the same black leather. You have a fold down center armrest here in the back with a couple of nice little cup holders as well. I noticed there are no USB chargers in the back, just one 12-volt 120-watt outlet at the back here of the console, so you can just plug in your little adapter and charge your phone that way. But I mean, just look at how much space I have, and if you want even more space, you can reach down here on the side, fold the seat up, and suddenly you can store just about anything back here. You have got a ton of room back here. As a matter of fact, you could probably fit a sleeping bag back here and just crash in the back of your truck if, I don't know, you're camping at the beach, you're camping with your friends, and maybe you forgot to bring your tent. I don't know. But either way, I mean, there is just a boatload of room back here. Look how far my legs can go. And that seat is in the position where I would be driving it. And same can be said for my head. I probably have at least a good maybe 2-3 inches of headroom back here, if not a little bit more, just getting into this truck. So I mean, if you need some room, the Tundra Crew Max, whether you get the TRD Pro trim or not, it has you covered everywhere. Well, everyone, that wraps up our review and drive of the 2021 Toyota Tundra TRD Pro Crew Max. I do hope you guys enjoyed this review as much as I did, and if you did, or you learned something today, please give this video a thumbs up, and also, while you're at it, consider hitting that subscribe button down below, because trust me, it benefits the both of us in the end. At the end of the day, however, I have to give a shout out once again to my friends at Gulf States Toyota, i.e. Toyota USA, for lending us this beast of a vehicle to drive for an entire week. But in the end, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see y'all next time. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.